I'm sorry, 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 sorry. I'm sorry, 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 sorry.
You can thank Ricky for that idea. What's up, everybody?
I'm a man of my word. I'll apologize.
Oh, man. Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Even Your Dicey show. We are here on our first leg of our apology tour for Wilmer Flores. Oh, man. No, but in all seriousness, good for Wilmer. Good for Hicks. Good for a few different guys that I know a lot of people feel like we've been too hard on. I'm not going to go full on and be like, oh, we were wrong, because it's been 6 games. Sorry. And, you know, in the case of Jordan Hicks, the concern was never really March through June. It's going to be July and on, or that's where our main questions are. We saw some great outings out of him last year, but, you know, hopefully he can hold up. I like what I saw from his stuff. I liked what I saw from the efficiency above all else, but yeah, we're going to just have to wait and see. But how are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to see the Giants winning. And as I've tweeted or posted, whatever you say on X now, I'm the credit for Wilmer's success. So you guys you're all welcome.
Yeah. Dan said he's motivating him.
It is. It's true. He's doing it just to spite me, and I'm here for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Wilmer watches the show before every game.
Yeah.
Pretends my face is a baseball.
Yeah. It's awesome. Joaquin says 5-1, but we're looking up at 2 unbeaten teams.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, the Giants have like the 3rd best record in Major League Baseball, and they're 3rd in their own division.
Rob says
and then there's the AL Central.
Yeah. Can we be traded to the AL Central?
Oh.
What kind of deal do we got to negotiate?
Just trade us with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
We'd be kings of that division.
Oh, God. Yeah, the NL Central's not good either. All the Central's kind of terrible.
See, Ziggy gets it.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, so Giants are 5-1. They're off to a great start. You know, I don't think I had sweeping Houston on my early schedule bingo card. Yeah, they lost Kyle Tucker. They've, you know, lost a few different guys, but it's still the Astros, and they've still been pretty dominant team for the last, 8 years or so. And yeah, that's huge. And now they're coming home. They've got 6 at home. They got Seattle starting tomorrow, followed by Cincinnati. For anybody that's going to be at the Red Series, come find us on Wednesday. We'll be wandering around. But yeah, Aaron, I think you about nailed it with how the Astros played this weekend. So yeah, or this week. But what'd you guys think?
One of the cool things is that we're 5-1, and Adames hasn't really started hitting yet. Chapman really hasn't started hitting yet. Like, some of these guys are supposed to be our umph in the lineup are still, shaking off a little bit of rust and hitting their strides, and we're still 5-1 because everyone else is contributing. So that's definitely a positive takeaway.
Yeah.
Honestly, it feels like it's been the Wilmer and Ramos show for the most part. I mean, Yaz has pitched in a couple nice games, but I mean, I think most of what he's done has just been singles here and there and a walk or two. And other than that, I mean, mostly everybody else hasn't really hit a ton. It's all kind of came in random little spurts. You sprinkle in a Lamont Wade home run and a couple other timely hits and sac flies here and there. But for the most part, it's just been scrappy, smart baseball being played. It's kind of like the old Giants of, pitching and defense, get them more than 3 runs and they're going to win the game. They're laying down tons of bunts late in games. They're driving in runs off of sac flies. And they're just, for the most part, doing a good job of putting the ball in play, at least when runners are in scoring position. They're still striking out a ton, but they are coming through when it's needed most.
No, you just hit the nail on the hammer, because that's That's the thing. Even though the team as a whole is only batting like 221, I think they're like 23rd in batting average or something like that. The situational thing, which is what we've been begging for the last 2-3 years, that is what's really showing dividends to these first 6 games, and that's ultimately what the difference maker is in a lot of these results. So, yeah, like everyone in the chat saying, like you touched on, it's the timely hitting, the small ball, and just the overall good fundamentals, both offensively and defensively. It's like if you can maintain this, you're going to be a successful team, and it's a sight for sore eyes, guys. We've been begging for this.
Yeah. Just so a couple things to throw out there. I'm kind of fiddling through these numbers. As of right now, the Giants are, they're 5-1. They have a team average of 202. They are 21st in baseball in batting average. They are, if we look at strikeouts, they have the going, least to highest. They would be 17th in the league, one ahead of the Dodgers, who have played 2 more games than them, or 2 or 3 more games at this point. So I mean, really, they're like 21st in baseball when it comes to that. Then if you go to, and this is like kind of to your guys' point, they're having kind of less opportunities, but then you go to stolen bases. They're 7th right now. They're tied for 7th. Now it's only 6 stolen bases, but I mean, they're getting 1 a game right now. And for a team that's had like 60 stolen bases the last 2 seasons, like each of the last 2 seasons, they're getting less opportunities, but they're doing more with those opportunities to, give themselves chances to get guys in. And then, like you guys said, they're having a lot of success getting guys in from third with less than 2 outs. That was like my biggest complaint last season for anybody that's heard me get on my tangents there. They're actually cashing those guys in. So it's good to see. Start, like Mike said, clean defense so far. Casey at first. I see a couple people mentioning it. To me, it just reeks of, hey, we gave this guy ground balls for a week, and now all of a sudden we're just going to throw him out there. And a lot of people have expectations that he should be like really like be able to go right away. And it's just not the reality. It's a different spin. It's different footwork. It's different everything. You don't just throw guys out of position at positions where they have 0 game experience and us expected to like go well. So I think he'll be fine. Casey's a good glove. He'll figure it out if they give him the time, but it's not going to be immediate.
Ultimately, I think that's to Ziggy's point, though. I think it's mainly to get his bat in the lineup.
Yeah.
Especially against lefties, because he's a threat against lefties. So it's, you might take a hit as far as it being somewhat of a liability at first, just due to the unknown. Like, yeah, he's got Gold Glove potential, but on the opposite side of the diamond. So it's mainly just a way to get his bat in the lineup, especially when Lamont was really struggling and Wilmer's been your primary DH. It's just it's a way to try to get creative offensively, which I'm all for.
Yeah. And one thing and I'm going to let Ricky take over here in a second. One thing for Casey that I think people forget and need to keep in mind, because he's had 6 at bats, 7 at bats a season, something like that. And, I see he's like 0-for-7 or 0-for-6. And I see it all over X where people are like, oh my God, leave this guy in Houston. It's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think people forget he had the back tightness at the end of spring training. He didn't take an at bat for like a week and a half. And his first at bat was the game in the like he didn't get any in the exhibitions against Detroit. He didn't get one against Sacramento when they did that exhibition. He didn't get any at bats for like a week and a half, and then he's just gotten like a sporadic 7. So I think we need to like be patient with him. He's done really well against lefties. If you look at his OPS last season against left-handed pitching in Sacramento, it was like 1,022, and then in San Francisco it was 991. So he can hit lefties. Let's just give him some time and just
really
see what happens.
And really quick, but I don't know if like even Bomel touched on it. He roped that one opposite field to the right center gap all the way to the warning track. It got tracked down on a great play by the center fielder. So he's seeing the ball and making contact. It's just, it'll come with more opportunities.
Yeah. Mike, I think this answer is because they still view Fitz as an everyday player and they don't want to be jumping him around. They want to let him get settled in at second base and just be comfortable. So while I agree that Fitz would probably be a bit more comfortable at first than Casey is, that would be my best guess.
Yeah, and to add on to the Casey situation, we really have to compare what happened with Lamont Wade Jr. He didn't start out as a first baseman. He started out as a corner outfielder. And I believe it was in 2021, they really started experimenting with him down in Sacramento a little bit. They called him up, they sent him down, they called him back up, and they really started sprinkling him in at first base as much as possible to get a little bit more versatility out of him. And I mean, even to this day, Lamont Wade is a fringe average defender at first base at best. He's really nothing spectacular there. And he's been at the position for 4 years. So let's give Casey a little bit of time. He's a very athletic player and a very good fielder. I have no doubts in my mind that he'll figure it out defensively at first. And I mean, even last year, we saw Lamont Wade make tons of mistakes, both throwing the ball over to second base and picking balls out. Sometimes he has really nice picks at first, and then other times he botches stuff that you absolutely expect out of a MLB first baseman. So I would just say give it a little bit of time. And then as far as the bat goes, going back to Lamont Wade, he was 1 for 16 prior to his last at bat, or 0 for 16 prior to that last at bat where he homered in the Houston game. So he's 1 for 17 right now with a home run. And last I checked, he hasn't really walked as much as he usually does either. So 0 walks. There you go. So, I mean, let's be fair. Let's hold the vets to the same standard we're holding these younger guys to, because he's getting a lot bigger of a sample size. I mean, he's played in like half the games, if not more so far. So, you know, all these guys are struggling for the most part outside of a few guys. Let's give it time. These sample sizes are tiny. Even with Adames, he's come through in a couple clutch situations, but he hasn't done a ton at the plate. But he totally, to me, looks like he's on the verge of breaking out. He's missed 2 home runs by like a foot. And he's come through with a sac fly in Cincinnati. He came through with a huge double down the left field line against Houston. I think a lot of these guys are getting close. And I mean, honestly, I think Patrick Bailey's the only one I would say is really looked lost at the plate. Even Lamont Wade, I feel like, has had some nice at-bats sprinkled in there where he wasn't getting rewarded for some hard contact. So I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, just look up and down this lineup right now. I mean, nobody's really hitting. The thing that's saving them right now is the long ball. Matos hit 1, obviously. Ramos has 3. Flores has 4 already this season. I mean, Chapman had a big one in Cincinnati in that third game. It's really just carrying them right now. And it's been their offense, other than they've been able to like scratch and claw a couple. They've been having, some extra base hits. I mean, Ramos has 3 doubles already. He's either homered or doubled in every game. And it's carrying them right now. So, we're going to see what happens. At some point, you'd think the offense going to heat up a little bit. Guys like Chapman has a track record of being a good hitter. Same with Adames. Like, these guys are going to get hot at some point. And I mean, hopefully the pitching remains hot when they do, but as of right now, find ways to win games, and they're doing all the little things. And that's just, that's just the difference right now. It feels like, approach matters, and the way you play matters. So, but what do you guys think of the starting pitching so far, and the bullpen as a whole, just the overall pitching staff? Like, how do you feel about it so far? Do you feel like it's sustainable over the course of the season? Obviously, it's been 6 games. We've had good starts out of almost everybody. Roop was looking pretty good for 4 innings, and then wheels kind of fell off the bus a little bit in the 5th as the pitch count got up. His control wasn't what it normally is, but I think that'll correct itself here in the next start or going forward.
I'm thrilled. All things considered, I mean, Webby, first game was obviously a little rough. Shook off some jitters, ended on a strong note, but his second start was great. Verlander is showing that he's not slowing down at 42. He's looking solid. You saw good things out of Roop the other day. Hicks was a very pleasant surprise, going 6 strong, allowing 1 hit. Velo was great in that game. So, I mean, all across the board, I'm pleasantly surprised. Robbie Ray, of course, as well. Bullpen has looked great, quite frankly, outside of, a couple outliers, which 3 of us have talked about. Yeah, I mean, all things considered, it's been pleasantly surprising, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah, and I honestly think a lot of what they've done so far this season is really sticking to the plan in spring training, which is throwing strikes. I believe they have 63 innings as a staff and only 15 walks, which you'll absolutely take, considering 4 of them were from Roop. So you take that out of the mix and you look at their relievers, and everybody's pretty much throwing strikes. And then everybody outside of Roop in the starting rotation has done a good job of limiting walks as well. And honestly, I would say for the most part, they've done a pretty good job of limiting the home run ball. I mean, you had Bivens give up the 1 big solo shot to lose the 1 game they've lost this year. Webb gave 1 up against Houston in his second start. And then you had, I believe it was back-to-back shots off of Ray at the very end of his start when he was starting to gas out. But for the most part, it really hasn't burned them at all, other than just their 1 loss. And that more boils down to a lack of run support in that game than anything. I mean, you score 2 runs, you're not going to win many games. So I think really just sticking to their plan, both offensively and from a pitching standpoint, they've done a really good job of executing what they wanted to do going into the season. Limiting walks and then timely hitting. That was the biggest thing. Yeah. I think the strikeouts will continue to come down. They've just kind of come in bunches. I think more so than anything, it was Framber, who's got nasty stuff. He's a frontline starting pitcher, and Hunter Green, who's one of the hardest throwing starting pitchers in the league. Outside of that, for the most part, it hasn't been too bad. They've just come in bigger bunches, but I think they're going to continue to do a better job of that as the season progresses and some of these guys start heating up a little bit. I think Jung-Hoo Lee's another guy. You see it in little spurts, having like a clutch double late in a game and then ends up getting driven in and providing that insurance run for the bullpen. I think all these little things, I think we're going to start to see in the next 2 weeks really play out with Lee and Adames start to heat up. And then I would say even Fitzgerald has been nice to see. He hasn't really been hitting great, but he's done a really good job of making an impact on the bases, being really aggressive running, and then also laying bunts down. And you're seeing that effect all up and down the lineup. I mean, I've seen Lamont Wade lay more bunts down in the last week than I have in the last 4 years, I feel like. And we've even seen Yaz do it, and they've done it really well. Like, they've actually executed in those situations. They've actually gotten bunts down the third base line and not struck out doing so. So it's really refreshing to see for sure.
Facts.
Yeah. Paul says small ball is amazing. You never saw a walk, stolen base, bunt over and sack fly last year. It's true. This team has brought back the bunt. It's brought back running. I mean, for the Giants, the rest of the league still did these things, but the Giants kind of decided that wasn't their style the last couple of years. Yeah, they're doing all these little things. It's awesome. And yeah, the strikeouts, I think the one thing we're all gonna have to accept throughout the year as Giants fans is you've got like 5 guys in the lineup right now that are gonna strike out a lot this season. And when you look at Yaz, Ramos, Chapman, Adames, Fitzgerald, these are all guys that are going to probably strike out between 25 and 30% of the time. So they're going to happen. Now, you hope that the power comes with it. You look at Ramos, who's struck out like 40% of the time this early in the season, but he's got 6 extra base hits. If he's doing that, who cares about it? Like if he's giving you the power and he's still hitting 260-ish or better, you just live with the Ks and you move on because he's going to come through a lot. Chapman's eventually you're going to get going. Adames will get going at some point. Hopefully Fitzgerald's going to get going at some point. Yaz is off to a nice start. All singles so far. I'm just throwing that out there because, Joey Bart got destroyed for that. Just saying. But, Yaz, like Mike O says, he's 5 for 15. He's playing well. His approaches look good. I gave him a ton of credit in the Red series. There was an at bat where he had 2 strikes on him. The Reds were giving him like the whole left side, and he just poked one over there. It's like, that's the stuff that we've been wanting to see for years from him. And now he's finally doing it. So I think the power will come at some point with him, but if he can just keep doing things like that, that's going to help this team a lot. But did you have any like major takeaways from the last 6 games that you felt like kind of going forward, the team needs to change and who's playing, whatever, what were your guys' takeaways?
I think one thing that I haven't heard discussed a ton is getting Luis Matos more at bats. He's very quietly hit very well in a small sample size. He has the 1 home run that almost got called a double against Houston. Luckily that got overturned. And then he's had a pair of doubles, I believe, as well. And I mean, I haven't noticed anything glaring out in the outfield defensively either. So he's a guy I feel like we need to mix in a little bit more. I know Yaz is playing fine. I haven't had any major complaints with Yaz at all. So it's not a bash on him, but being that Matos is a younger guy that we expect to be a part of the future in the outfield, I think we need to start sprinkling him in more against right-handed pitching, because I do not at all see Matos being a guy that needs to be strictly a platoon player. That is not his game at all. He's very good at making contact against both arms, right and left. So I think he's a guy we need to sprinkle in a little bit more instead of going strictly platooning, because if that's the case, then we're only going to be seeing Matos a lot of times get 1 start a week. And he honestly, both in the spring and so far this season, has played into getting more playing time. So he did get the 1 start against right-handed pitching when Yaz was out with, a sore back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's see Matos get some more at bats and see what he's got. I mean, ultimately, all you can ask to do is to produce in small sample sizes whenever he's given the chance to do so. And as he's doing so, you need to reward that play. That was one of my biggest things I liked with Bruce Bochy as our manager is if you hit, you're going to be in the lineup the next day. If you hit a home run, you were sure as hell going to be in the lineup the next day. So play the hot hand and reward guys when they have a nice game. Find a way to get him in. You have a freaking DH in the lineup now, and you don't have a solidified guy. I mean, Wilmer is probably going to play his way into that spot, but you can still play Wilmer at first base and give Matos a few extra at-bats, another start a week. So that's my biggest takeaway outside of Wilmer's hot stretch in the first 6 games is play Matos more, see what he can do against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. That's what I was going to point out. You got to get him in the lineup some way, shape, or form, whether it means plugging him in one of the corner outfield spots, whether it means plugging him in at DH, sliding Wilmer to first, whether it means, late replacement. You got to get him in the game at some point, and he's started off great. Defense has shown that he's not a minus defender, as some so-called experts on X like to claim. So I agree wholeheartedly. You got to get him in the lineup some way, shape, or form. And then outside of that, I mean, only other thing I can think of is certain matchups in the bullpen. Bomel's gotten pretty lucky in a couple cases with some guys he's gotten have lucked into some crazy double plays to get out of a scare or a jam. So only thing I can really think of, but I mean, that kind of comes with Melvin. bullpen choices. So that's the only two outliers that stand out to me right now that you'd probably want to focus on a little bit more in particular. And then obviously the one Mike says, but I don't want to start ranting about that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I think you guys knew where I was headed with that. Like,
Yeah,
Luis Matos, you've got to find a way to get him at bats. I don't know what the answer necessarily is going to be. I don't know if that's going to be, I don't know if that means you're going to have to sit Yaz more. I don't know if that means, hey, Ramos, you're going to go DH for a day. So we're going to get you, Luis in left field, like what they did with Lee this last game where they said, cool, you're going to get a day off. Now it was against a lefty. We all knew Matos was going to play against the lefty. I think we were all a little shocked that Lee got the day off instead of Yaz, but however it is, like they've got to find him at bats. If that means Wilmer Flores, like if Wade's still scuffling, if that means Wade is, gets benched for a game, even against a righty, and you're going to put Flores at first, like find a way to get, Matos in the game. So like, that's my main takeaway. And kind of to the point I was making earlier about the strikeouts, I think, I think that is another reason why you've got to get him in. When you look at the lineup and you've got, 5 guys that are going to strike out 25 to 30% of the time, you have one guy in your lineup that's got like elite bat to ball skills in the league. Get a second just for the sake of balancing your lineup out a little bit. Like it's needed. And, other than that, you got Flores, who's got a pretty good bat to ball overall. I think he struck out like 15, 16% of the time over the course of the last like 5 or 6 years. So, I mean, you can live with that, but there are so many reasons I could list off, but you guys kind of listed them with the age, the future, all those things. But yeah, just one thing is just the lineup balance is necessary.
100%.
One other takeaway that I just remembered because of Ziggy's comment about Spencer Bivens is figure out what the role is for Hayden Birdsong going forward. You got to. Him coming in after 6 games and only pitching 2 innings, not saying he needed to close that game out, but him coming in for 2 innings after sitting all week just makes no sense. Like, please, let's not go down that road. If we're going to have Hayden Birdsong be on this roster, pitching out of the bullpen, figure out what his role is going to be, because you need to get his workload up. You cannot have him coming in, pitching 2 days in relief for Roop every, 5 days. Like, we got to get his innings up. You got to throw him down in Sacramento if you're not going to find a role for him out of the pen, or utilize him as a long man. If we're afraid of using him as a long man, I don't really know why he's on the roster. I mean, we've seen more than enough, not just this season, but last season out of Spencer Bivens to know what type of pitcher he is. So what are we worried about having Hayden Birdsong come in middle relief and eating up 4 innings in a crucial game where you want to save your high leverage arms and say a tie game? Why not? Yeah. You're telling me starting a game on the mound isn't high leverage? It absolutely is. So I don't know why he couldn't come into a tie game. It's the same situation, really. Coming in the 5th inning, you got to utilize the guy. The guy is way too talented. He's way too important to the future of this team to delay his development by utilizing him for only 2 innings. You're just wasting a spot in the pen that you could have used to just have Tristan Beck, Sean Jelly, Joel Peguero, you name it, come up and pitch for you. So I don't know. Figure that situation out. I would use him more how they're using Spencer Bivens, at least for the time being. Give him 1 day every 5 days if you want, but have him go like 4 innings. I didn't have a huge issue with him not finishing the game in Houston, like I said, but figure out what you're going to do. Or like Ziggy says, Joey Lucchesi too. pick somebody and have them come up and fill a role, because you're going to burn a lot of your high leverage arms if you're only utilizing Birdsong for 2 innings.
Yeah. I know they mentioned that they had Hayden kind of ready to go both in the game Hicks started and the game Roop started. So it sounds like they have a plan in place, because they have 2 guys in the rotation that they're not ultra confident in filling, 5-6 innings. But you can't just limit him to those. Like if like Ricky said, if you burn your 4 main guys against Cincinnati on the opening day, and then you go into game 2 and you're like, okay, well, we don't really want to use those guys, then you can't just go to a guy that we've seen the story with Bivens so many times last season. In low leverage situations, he was pretty solid. When it got tight, he really wasn't most of the time last season. And you put him in a tie game, and it's just like, I think all of us were like, he's going to give up the cookies here. And I mean, he gave up 1. It's not like he got lit up or anything. He just won, and it was an Oppo homer, which good for don't remember. I think it was Encarnacion. So it was like good for him. He beat a good pitch, but it's like, he doesn't have great stuff. So he gets beat sometimes, even when he makes good pitches. And I'd have rather gone with a guy like Hayden, saved your bullpen, let him throw 2 innings that game when it's a tie game. So yeah, they've got to get a plan in place for him, whether that's every time through the rotation, he's going to come into like 2 games and throw 2 innings or something. Or like Ricky said, if someone's throwing a clunker, be like, all right, dude, you're getting 4 today or whatever. Just get him his work, because otherwise it's going to be a big old, what are we doing here? When he's got, like I've talked about in the past, when he's got like 20 innings at the end of May, and we're all sitting here staring at it like, is this guy going to throw at some point? So they got to figure out a plan with him, because it right now it doesn't feel like they have one, other than wait for someone to screw up and then throw him in there.
I think to your point is kind of what the plan is. Like you briefly mentioned, he's insurance for Hicks and Roop at the moment, but that's not sustainable. You got to find a legit role for the guy. And then, as you said, with Bivens, ideal situation for him, you got a 4+ run lead, and you just need to get an arm in there. But that's about it right there.
Yeah, and going back to that one loss in Cincinnati where they had Bivens come in and he ended up giving up the game-winning home run to Encarnacion Strand. We all said it while that game was going on. Why is Trevino not in this situation? This is a veteran guy who is used to pitching high leverage innings, and ultimately Trevino is kind of a luxury at this point because of his experience. He's a guy a lot of teams would be happy to put in the 7th and 8th innings in tie games or games with a 1 or 2 run lead. And ultimately you went with Bivens in a tie game, but you had Trevino and Rodriguez, who you ended up going to later on in that game after the game was you were already down by a run and your offense is struggling. So it just didn't really make a ton of sense to me in that situation. It would have been nice to see either Rodriguez or Trevino in that situation. And then after that point, you go back to, Bivens or Birdsong if you're down, and it's just about establishing those roles early on. So hopefully they learn from that. But ultimately, I don't think it will be too much longer before we see a change with that role in the pen. Other than that, I, for the most part, do like that there's clear established roles. You see any high leverage situation with a couple lefties in the other team's middle of their order, Eric Miller is going to be coming in, and he's been lights out, as Dan mentioned. And then other than that, you see both Walker and Doval being flip-flopped back and forth in the closer role. Just when Walker's needed rest, or he had that little setback he had for the one game that Doval closed out. And then other than that, you rely on Trevino and Rodriguez to help you out if you need to fill, the 6th inning after a starter pitches well and you're in a tight game. You go to those guys, but you got to stick with your guys that are going to come in when you're losing a game. And then you got to go to your better guys when you have a tie game or a lead, in the 5th or 6th innings if your starter is going shorter. So hopefully he can figure that one out.
I agree, Gilbert. That's my biggest complaint with this roster right now. I don't like what they're doing with Hayden, but you know, hopefully they've got a good they have a plan in place. I just don't see it yet. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And to Ricky's point regarding Trevino, I think a lot of people forget he's got 37 career saves.
Yeah.
Like he was a closer in Oakland back in 2019, 2020.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, 2021. My bad. Yeah, he saved 22 games that season. Like this is a good pitcher. And yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of track record. Obviously, for 2 years he didn't pitch. But like this is a guy that's got a lot of experience in those kind of situations. So even with him not having thrown in a while, like I would have felt better about him in a tie game.
Yeah.
Like 100%. But yeah, other than that, the only other guy in the bullpen, because the bullpen's been great, which, hey, who'd have thought you have more than 2.5 starters and your bullpen looks good? Weird how that works. These guys aren't throwing, 20 innings a series.
It's rocket science.
God, it's almost like certain few people said that like all off season that their bullpen would be good if they just get length out of their starters. So we'll see how it goes. But big shout out to Camilo Duvall, who has looked real good so far in the pen, finally throwing strikes again. Hey, you know, JP Martinez, maybe Yusmeiro Petit got him right when he came to camp. Whoever the case is, he looks good. I think quietly he's going to end the season with like 15 saves, honestly. Like, because they're not going to burn Walker every single opportunity as they've shown. So he's going to get some opportunities to save games, and he already has 2. So, I think he's going to quietly rack up like 15, and then the Giants will have a decision to make in the offseason at that point if they're pretty good, and he has a great year. So, yeah, that was the other guy I wanted to give a shout out because he's looked really nasty. Any other players really standing out for you guys?
I mean, we do have to give Jordan Hicks his flowers for that start for sure.
Yeah.
He was very solid. Like you mentioned earlier, the biggest thing with him is sustainability. We know that on the high end he can do this early on in the season. It's just a matter of, is he going to gas out 2 to 3 months into the season? And then we're back to 4 innings to 5 innings, Jordan Hicks at best. And, him utilizing his pitch count very inefficiently. And you almost saw a little bit of it early on in his start the other day. You saw him early on, I think it was the first inning, he gets an out on the first pitch. And then after that goes and drags his way to, I think it was like a 20-something pitch inning. And it's like, dude, if you get somebody to get themselves out on one pitch to start an inning, you need to attack them right off the bat. You should not be just instantly going for strikeouts. If guys are going to get themselves out on weak contact, you need to take that, because that is such a huge difference maker going into games. If you have an unselfish Jordan Hicks who is going to let hitters get themselves out, when he is on, he can get tons and tons and tons of ground balls. And if we haven't noticed, the infield looks pretty damn good, and you're going to get a lot of outs very quickly if you can continue to get ground balls. I mean, Webb hasn't even, I wouldn't say he's been at his peak at all by any means yet, and he's done a great job of getting himself out of a ton of jams just by utilizing the ground ball and getting several inning-ending double plays to get himself out of trouble. So Jordan Hicks needs to utilize that. I mean, there's tons of times where we've seen Webb doesn't look like amazing, but he always scratches and claws to get through 7 innings. And hey, maybe he only has 4 or 5 Ks in that start, but you know what? He's getting quick outs and having efficient innings, even if he's like kind of struggled at the start of a game. And that's what a professional starting pitcher needs to do. So I really hope we can see more of that out of Hicks, because while strikeouts do help, go for them when you absolutely need them, but make it hurt on that opposing lineup if they're going to get themselves out quick in counts.
Yeah.
So I really hope we continue to see that out of Hicks, because that would make a huge difference for the bullpen this year.
Yeah.
He threw 72 pitches. So to Ricky's point, he threw 72 pitches, 51 for strikes. That's 70.8%. That's phenomenal. Like, that's really good. I think he had 2 walks. So, I mean, he threw 21 balls and 8 of them came in 2 hitters of the 21 that he faced.
Yeah.
So he really attacked the zone pretty well for the most part. It's like Ricky said, sometimes he starts chasing the strikeouts, tries to get too perfect, tries to get and he'll throw some just completely uncompetitive pitches. And it's just too frequent. You know, I mean, every guy's going to have them. Ball gets away from a guy. Webb's thrown plenty. But he'll throw like 2 to the same hitter. And he'll go from 0-2 to 2-2 real fast. And then might throw 1 good chase pitch and the guy spits on it. And all of a sudden it's a 3-2 count. It's like, okay, well, that, you know, I would have loved to see you just go at the guy and make him try and protect and put it on the ground, because like Ricky said, the defense is great in the infield right now. Adames looks so good right now next to Chapman. Yeah, it's probably partially because he doesn't really have to go to his, you know, backhand that frequently because Chapman covers so much, but he's looked really good. Fitzgerald looks solid at second base. Chapman's Chapman, so he's just doing his thing over at third. And then first base, you know, I'll give Lamont Wade some credit. He's looked good so far this season at first. He's made like 1 diving play. He's been clean on his picks. I don't think I've seen one go by him yet. Flores has no range, but he's just kind of doing his thing. He's pretty reliable on picking the ball and things like that. He's
definitely better than Wade.
Yeah. Flores is super reliable on anything hit directly at him or on a pick at first. He just has no range. Like, that's my biggest complaint about him over there. But, you know, overall, like, you look at Jordan Hicks's last 3 years. If you go back his last 3 seasons, I'm not going to look at this year because it's been 1 start, but he was 97th percentile on ground ball percentage in 2022. He was 96th percentile in 2023, and he was 85th percentile last year. And honestly, I think he was like 95th percentile, 94th, 96th, somewhere in that range. And then he gassed out. Command went to crap, stuff went to crap, guys started hitting him around. So you're elite at getting ground balls. Just attack the zone. You throw a 98-mile-an-hour sinker. Yeah. Guys are just going to hit that in the dirt all day long. Like, that's why it's like he can last as a starter if he does what he just did, because his pitch count's going to stay down. They can still pull him after 6, turn it over to the bullpen. They don't need to try and get 7 or 8 innings out of the guy. If you're getting 6 and he's throwing 70-something pitches or 80 pitches, he should theoretically be able to last. And if he can't last on that pitch count, then you ain't a starter anyway, as far as I'm concerned. So, like, that's kind of, you know, that's what I saw out of Hicks. Super promising. As we've all said, we would all love to eat crow on that one. I hope in September this team's like firmly entrenched in a playoff spot and Hicks is still dealing and he's like pushing 150 innings and we all have to sit here and be like, yep, we were wrong. He looks great. That's all what we're rooting for here.
100%.
So,
and shout out Joaquin.
Yeah, big thanks to Joaquin. Really like Ramos. Hope he turns out to be a successful outfielder with us for a long time. Really want Lee to succeed too. That Korean barbecue video on YouTube was pure vibes.
Was vibes.
Yeah. And you know, speaking of vibes, like this team, and Tom says it right there too, the entire team dynamic seems energized this early season. I mean, you know, we shouted out Adames the first game, but like these guys are all, you can tell they're playing for each other and they all love each other and it's just such a different vibe around this team. So
way different from years past.
Yeah. Guys that are slumping, they're not slumping their shoulders. They're not. And I mean, yeah, it's easier when you're slumping when the whole team's winning anyway. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not killing us yet, you know, like, but you don't see guys down on themselves. You just see guys that are like, all right, we'll get him the next at bat. And like Ricky said earlier, a guy like Adames who's in a funk right now, but he's hit some balls hard. And I think he knows, like, I'm going to get going soon.
Let me ask you guys a question, piggybacking off of Joaquin says and what Darius commented. What do you guys think of potentially approaching Ramos with a Jackson Merrill type extension offer?
I personally, I think it would be wise to do, especially when you look at this offseason and who's out there. If you want to be aggressive and try to go after, a Kyle Tucker or Vlad Jr., it makes those guys a lot more doable when you already have a potential all-star outfielder locked up long-term on a pretty team-friendly deal, given what he could get on the open market when he does hit free agency, if he continues on the trajectory he's on right now. I personally think it would be wise to do. And then it can be ultimately utilized for upcoming free agents as well, saying, hey, we have X, Y, and Z players locked up. Ramos, Chapman, Adames, Lee's more likely to opt in. And then ultimately you have a core group of guys that free agents can be like, you know what, they actually are building something here, not only on the pitching side, but on the position player side. They actually have a handful of positions locked in long term, and this team could be really good for several years, not just this year, with a veteran club. So I think it would be really crucial in, trying to bring in a bigger name free agent like that for sure.
And it's payroll stability,
Yeah.
And who knows when the new tax or the new CBA comes through, like what the situation is going to look like in a couple of years. This could end up looking like a steal if you can get him on a deal now. Now I kind of touched, I know when we were in our group chats and stuff like that, like I touched on it, where I don't think you're getting him on the Merrill deal. And it's not to say that I think, hey, Ramos is a better player, yada, yada, things like that. Like, I think what we all need to remember is like Jackson Merrill is 22. Like he can hit free agency, and there's no opt-outs in his deal, right? It was just an extension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's 22, I think now, or might be 23. Someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but he's going to be either 30 or 31 when he becomes a free agent. He can still go out and get that massive deal, and when you look at a guy like Ramos, right now, he's got 5 years of control left. If he becomes a free agent at the end of that, he's going to be having just finished his age 29 season. So right now for the Giants, if you're going to approach Elliot Ramos, you're going to have to basically say, hey, if they're trying to buy out his prime, we want you to kind of forfeit the one opportunity you might potentially have to go chase that 8, 9, 10-year deal, that huge contract. If you bet on yourself and you're everything that we think you can be, and you're, all this stuff, like he's going to have an opportunity to go chase that huge contract at 29 years old going into his age 30 season. So I think you're going to have to pay more annually. You might have to slap some player options on that at the end. Like it's going to have to be, there's going to have to be security for him. That way, if his game does fall apart at the tail end, he can just pick up a couple options for like $25 million a year or something like that. So I think it's possible, but yeah, like I do think it's going to cost more. I mean, would you guys, if you could approach him with like 8 for $160 million, do you just do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So Merrill actually is still 21. He turns 22 here in 2 weeks. So even younger than we thought. But he will not hit free agency more than likely until his age 33 season, due to a club option in the last year of this contract extension. So assuming he's a pretty competent player at age 32, they opt into that deal still, especially at that time in, 10 plus years from now, will be an extremely affordable club option. So probably not till his age 33 season. Ramos is 25, I believe. So
yeah,
the number would be different for sure, but I would 100% do that.
And hypothetically, what if Ramos pulls a Logan Webb and says, "Hey, I'll give a hometown discount"? Like, you never know. It's unlikely, but he loves it here. Loves the teammates.
Yeah.
Loves the city. It's where he was.
Yeah.
He, came up as a pro. So who knows? Maybe he works out a Logan Webb type extension. So I just definitely think you got to get him locked up sooner rather than later.
And I've always said, like, I will never count on the hometown, discount.
Of course.
It's great if it comes, like if he's willing to pull a Webb and he's like, yeah, I'll take a little less and extend it a few years, but I never want to count on that because I've always said, like, it's these players' God-given right to chase every last dollar from these billionaire owners, and I don't blame them for doing it.
100%.
So, yeah, if he wants to do it, he should do it. But yeah, I want to talk to M. Gray's point here. He says too early sample size, still too small to think about long-term big dollar Ramos extension. You know what, M. Gray, like the risk is there. Absolutely. I 100% agree that there is big risk if you try and do this extension now, but it also can pay off massively. You've seen teams all around baseball. Guys like Acuna did this. The Braves have done this with multiple guys that hadn't even seen the big leagues yet. I think they did it with, was it Albies?
Yeah.
They've done it with a few guys. The Diamondbacks, they did it with Corbin Carroll before he ever saw the field. The Brewers last year did it with Curio before he ever saw the field.
Didn't the Red Sox just do it with their top
Christian
prospect
Campbell?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I mean, if you're a believer and you think the guy's going to be everything you hope, the reason to do it is because on the tail, you're going to pay him more up front. And, they'll probably structure it in a way to like, the out of pocket might be like, $7 million the first year and then $9 million, whatever. And then it like gets progressively bigger, but it locks in the tax hit every year. And the reason to do it is because on the back end of that deal where you're paying him 20 million tax hit, his earning potential, like his age 29, 30, 31, he'd be a $30 million player probably at that point, especially with how inflation and all that stuff is happening. Like the last 5 or 6 years of that deal, you're not going to be paying him really more than he would have been making before. Like it's going to be about the same or less at that point if he's what you hope.
Yeah.
So, and he could be exactly what the player he is right now for the duration of that deal, like no progression. And I'd be like, yeah, I'd take that deal because you're talking about a 25 to 30 home run hitter, 60 plus extra base hits, middle of the order bat.
Yeah.
So,
and you do these things for long-term sustainability because when you're paying your own guys in-house, and the reason why you draft and develop is because they're not hitting the open market. So you're only competing with yourself here. You're negotiating with the agent and the player, and you're not having to go up against, say, 5 other big market teams that are going to try to cash out these guys. And you're getting them under contract in their prime years versus when these guys hit free agency and you have to spend that money. You're spending top dollar for, say, 4 to 5 good high-end years before they get into their mid-30s and they're no longer good. And then you're over here paying them a huge amount because that's just the way MLB contracts are structured. Usually guys don't see free agency until 29 to 31 years old. So while the risk is there, more often than not, it's good. Like they just said, Christian Campbell, he just signed, I think, for like 80 million over like, what was it, 7 years or something like that, or 6 years. Like, if this guy is a stud like they think he is, I mean, he ran through the minors in a year. That is the bargain of the century, man. Like, you're getting these guys locked up. You don't have to deal with arbitration or any of these things. And you have a very affordable superstar type player. And then when free agency comes around and you want to bring a guy in from the outside, you're like, I already have an all-star outfielder here on the cheap. I already have an all-star pitcher on the cheap in Logan Webb. Now I can go in and cash out a big free agent, and it's really not hurting me long-term because I have all these other bargains that we've kept in-house. So that's why you do those things.
Churio, yeah.
8 for 82 for Jackson Churio. Think Brewers regret that deal?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
What was Corbin Carroll's It was like 8 for 100 or something like that. 8-year 111.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to regret that either.
Nope.
You know, it's just it's a risk, you know. I mean, and I think Joaquin says it great right here. There's always going to be a risk for both sides in these deals, so I hope it works out altogether. Ramos makes a bag while hitting more home runs into the Cove. Yeah, I mean, it's a risk for Ramos. We've already talked about how he can sacrifice massive earning potential by taking that deal, but it also gives him security, and you know, sometimes it's worth it for those guys if you're offering them a 9-figure deal to basically just say, hey, we want you through your prime, basically, you know, like we want you through your, if you get him to sign an 8-year deal right now, you're basically saying we're going to take you through your age 32 season, which is kind of always been viewed as like the end of a player's prime. And then at that point, if he walks, he walks. And I'm not trying to be like like no sentimentality or anything like that with players, but it's better to let these guys go when they're exiting their prime than it is to try and just re-sign him because they're a fan favorite and things like that, you know? So if you can get him signed through his prime and then see what happens after that, you worry about that later. But that would be a great deal in my opinion. Is he a Boris client? Do you guys know? I don't think he is.
I don't believe so. And honestly, no, he's not. He's with Munger English Sports Management, which they actually rep a lot of Giants prospects. So that shouldn't be too big of a deal in my opinion. I just feel like there's honestly less risk with a Ramos extension than honestly just about any other big time extension you'd be giving out, just because you've actually seen a full season's worth of well above average play. And you saw the progression, you know, in 2023 in the second half of the AAA season for Ramos as well. So you actually have a jump start on evaluating, you know, what his worth could be, because you've seen it at the big league level where these guys like Corbin Carroll, Jackson Churio, Christian Campbell, they're still unknowns, because while they look like stars, they're still not in the big leagues yet, and things can change very quickly. Or you could have the guys like Aaron Rowand or Anthony Rendon or whoever. You could name off tons of free agents that get paid at their age 30 seasons and just turn into pumpkins. There's just as much risk going in with these 30-year-old free agents, giving them, you know, $200 million paydays as there would be with, you know, Ramos, who might not even see 200 million, and you already have an evaluation on him in the big league. So,
and you've seen him in our park.
Yeah, in our park, exactly. Right. Like that's a huge jumpstart. Like imagine, like in the NFL draft, you get a player for a full season before you actually have to draft him onto your team. Like that's a huge advantage. You already have a really solid evaluation on the player right in front of your face. So, you know, these other guys, you know, they're evaluating them in AAA and saying, yeah, I project this guy being a star player at the big league level. So I just feel like the risk is a lot less. And while we don't expect him to take the Webb type discount, you look at how that Webb contract ages, and boy, that is one of the bigger steals in all of the league. Like that is an extremely cheap freaking deal for a guy that you got signed before hitting age 30 and is staying with you through all of his prime years.
Yeah.
So
he's got, getting it 4 years, including this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they have him for a while. Then
age
that's why
season, I believe,
his value is so high still. I mean, you look at a contract like Webb's with his production, that's the type of deal that makes it easy for them to argue going after a Corbin Burns or you name it, whatever, Blake Snell, whatever starting pitcher, because you have that financial flexibility and it just furthers the strength in your rotation, having a guy like that cheap. So,
yeah. Hey, we'll see what happens. We'll see if they're willing. I think I feel like if Ramos is willing to talk extension, I think a guy like Posey would be willing to do it. But we'll see what the team thinks.
Hey, according to Bay Area Bob,
It's my burner account for those that don't know. Oh man. And shout out and really quick, Harris says Ramos's defense is great. Yeah, you put him in a corner. He's awesome. He might win a Gold Glove in left field this season. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, we'll see. All right. Big shout out to Ziggy. Appreciate you. Sorry, we wanted to do that Ramos target or topic, so we held off on this one. But boys, when are we gonna get my boy Bo Bichette? Just lie to me and tell me we get him.
Hey, 3 of us are Bichette fans.
Hey,
Oh,
you know what? And as someone who loves Casey Schmidt and would love to give him, if Fitzgerald were to fall apart, I'd love for Casey to get a shot at second. I'll tell you what, if it was possible to get Bo on an extension, and that's the hard part, I don't think you would be able to get him extended in after a trade. But if Fitzgerald isn't the guy that we all hope he is, then damn, I would be all over Bo Bichette if you can. I haven't looked at how he's doing this season. I feel like he's going to bounce back though.
Just imagine infield with the offensive upside of Chappie, Adames, Bo, and Bryce. My gosh, that's insane.
Bo's hitting 310 right now with 2 doubles, no home runs, only 3 strikeouts in 7 games. So small sample size, but that's a lot more like the player we're used to seeing outside of last season.
Yeah.
Last season was just atrocious for him, and he has way, way better of a track record all through the minors, his pedigree. I mean, you look at who his dad was, everything lines up to he's probably not who he was last year.
Yeah.
And he battled injury a little bit too.
Super small sample size, but here's Bo's OPS plus by season. And I will include the 7 games that he's played this season just for the sake of this. 144, 127, 121, 128, 122, 72, 127. One of these is not like the others. So I'm going to say I have faith in him turning it back around. Joaquin says, I think today someone said that Bo's aiming for free agency. I'm sure he is, honestly.
Yeah.
Like he had a horrible season last season. He's in his contract year. I'm sure in his brain, it's like, I'm just going to go try and put the best year together and go hit free agency and go get a bunch of money next season. And he's a guy that I think the Giants could actually get in free agency, similar to like Adames and Chapman. Like I think Bo is a player they could get, because I don't think he's going to look at Oracle and be like, oh no, I'm going to lose a bunch of home runs. Like he's not a big power guy. He's hit 29 in a season and 24 and 20 in a season, but like that's not his game. He rakes. That's his game. So yeah. We're going to do a little bit of minor league talk in a second, because they did announce the rosters, but I think the last one really quick. Tom says, would anyone consider trading Birdsong and a piece for Devers if his Boston troubles make him available? After the stink Devers made about moving off third base,
Exactly.
do we really want to bring him here, or we have Chapman?
That's my
not a
thing.
fit. That's non-negotiable.
Yeah. If he's going to embrace first base and be like, you know what, I'm all for it, I'll go play first, we could have a talk. But I after this offseason, I don't know if that's going to happen. So,
and one last thing on Bo real quick too. The other thing he really would do for this team is balance out the lineup. You throw Bo in there and you can plug him in. Honestly, you're not going to ideally bat Bo cleanup or something like that, but you ideally could bat him 1 through 6 and plug him in anywhere and it wouldn't matter. But you look at a guy like him somewhere in the top half of the lineup, and then it gives you the flexibility to bump Jung-Hoo Lee back up to the leadoff spot, and then everything fills in from there. You could go Lee, Bo, Adames, Chapman, Ramos, and the GOAT Wilmer Flores. No, in all seriousness.
If you got Bo and Matos into the lineup with Lee, that's 3 guys that are going to put the ball in play pretty reliably. And Flores, like you said. So, I mean, damn.
Yeah, so it really would do a lot for you. And there's, you give him a decent sized deal if he just goes off this year in his contract year. And you're not going to have a ton of pressure put on him. He's not going to be hitting in LA or New York where everybody's going to be watching every little thing he's doing. And you have that core group of guys with Chapman, Ramos, Adames, and Lee all there. So nobody's going to be going out of their way to pay attention to him like they would maybe if Vlad Jr. came over here. Everybody's going to be like expecting the world out of Vlad Jr. if he comes here. But Bo is not that guy. He's more of the Robin to your Batman where, Vlad Jr. is going to have all the eyes on him in the world no matter what team he goes to in free agency. Assuming he doesn't sign up with Toronto, of course. But I don't see Bo going back to Toronto personally. I honestly feel like Vlad Jr. will probably leave too, but I see Bo kind of in that same realm as Adames. Like there's going to be a short list of people that can actually afford to pay him, and there's going to be an even shorter list of teams that are going to have a spot for him. I would have to assume the Dodgers are going to be right there like they always are because they could definitely use a middle infielder. But, I mean, there's nothing to say that the Dodgers don't spend all their, time and money on Vlad Jr. and Kyle Tucker, and then the Giants can kind of snag Bo like they did Adames, and show him like, hey, we want you more than anybody else wants you. So that could be a great play. And the other thing is, Bo literally just turned 27. So you get him next year and he's barely entering his age 28 season, which is about 2 years younger than your average free agent. So it would fit right in line with your core group of guys that I mentioned in the top half of your lineup.
Yeah.
Agreed. Where's the... All right, so we're gonna hop on over, do a little bit of minor league talk before we wrap this up. Before I hop over that, anybody that's for those of you watching that enjoy it, that aren't subscribed, if you can't hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate it. That's gonna be me pandering for the day, and but the minor league season does start tomorrow for A-ball, high A and double A. We have been given their rosters finally. So we're going to pull up kind of each team. We're going to talk a little bit about, what to watch, which guys, we're kind of excited to see. I think we had a few surprises. There weren't too many. A lot of them we actually kind of predicted what was going on, but starting off, we'll just kick it off with San Jose. I think the only shock I kind of had from this nothing really jumped out. Bresnahan in repeating A-ball. Them keeping Lisbel Diaz in San Jose, I think was a little bit of a shock, and then no Rayner. I thought Lisbel would be in high A, and I thought Rayner would be in San Jose.
Yeah.
That was kind of my thought.
The Rayner was the biggest one for me.
Yeah. But yeah, did you have any kind of anything stand out to you, Ricky?
I think it really comes down to a lot of these guys rehabbing and getting ready for the season still. And I think we're going to see a ton of movement after, I would say, the first, 3 to 4 weeks of the minor league season. There's a huge logjam between the Arizona Complex League and San Jose Giants, low A. So I think we're going to see a handful of these college guys that have been recently drafted get bumped up to high A Eugene, where there's a lot more holes, in my opinion, on the position player side. And I think we're going to see a lot of these rehabbing guys backfill the San Jose roster once those holes open up. So I think the team we see there in San Jose right now is going to look very, very different here in about a month. And I think we're going to see another influx of some guys getting released that haven't really performed and are starting to get into the AA territory where they're kind of they're underperforming for their level and their spots need to be freed up for other guys to come in. So I see that happening. I could see both Jose Ortiz and Lisbel Diaz, outfielders in San Jose, moving up. They both spent plenty of time in San Jose, in my opinion, and have performed well. You also have a guy like Maui Ahuna who's rehabbing, and he's going to have to fill back in San Jose again, probably at least for a little bit until he proves that he can hit at that level because he's really struggled. So I see a lot of these guys getting bumped up here soon. Walker Martin probably spends a decent amount of time there, but I think both Jacob Christian and Robert Hipwell we could see in Eugene early on in the season in the first half, just in order to create room for some of these other guys. Because you look at Ryan Reckley and Walker Martin, who spent a good amount of time in San Jose last year, they're just younger and they need a little bit more time to develop at that level. So I see some of these college bats getting bumped up. And I think that's where we'll see some of the movement there.
Yeah.
And also a couple names that people might have noticed that are missing right now from the San Jose roster: Xander Darby and Jeremiah Jenkins. Currently not showing. I would imagine they're going to be there soon. I think Ricky had a little bit of news on that one.
Yeah, they're both rehabbing down in Arizona. They should be there within the first month of the season. So like I said, there'll be some spots opening up on the position player side, and they should all be – some of these college guys should be getting moved up to high A where they're going to be more likely to be able to handle that level of competition.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, we'll jump on over to high A roster. Couple notables. Bostic got promoted up to high A. Pitching side of things, nothing really truly stands out to me. Infield, Quinn McDaniel staying down another year or to start the year. That was a little bit of a shock. I felt like he showed enough that I expected to see him kind of get bumped up to Richmond, but I think it came down to where he was going to get playing time. Because we'll look at the Richmond roster here in a second. Bo Davidson got promoted up there. That was really nice to see. James Tibbs is going to start in high A. Jonah Cox will be in high A. That could be a pretty fun outfield to watch. O'Neal Perez staying in high A another year, or at least to start the year. And Charlie Zacconi, that's another one in the infield to watch. So there's some good players to watch in Eugene right now. I think it'll still be a pretty exciting team. I'll definitely be tuning in. The pitching staff isn't anything to really write home on, but I think offensively they'll have some good players and good talent to watch.
Yeah.
Especially the outfield.
Yeah. And this is kind of to further the point of where I see some of the early season movement happening. I think, Charlie spent an okay amount of time in Eugene last year. I think they just want to see him adjust a little bit more to that level. He was really good for San Jose, still getting acclimated to a little bit more advanced pitching in Eugene. So I think he'll spend a little bit of time there. But I see Quinn McDaniel and possibly Tibbs moving up to Richmond early in the season. If Tibbs ends up having a nice start to the season with him being a more advanced college hitter, I don't think he'll need to spend too much time down there. And then Quinn had a pretty solid season last year. So I think if he hits well to start the season, he'll be a quick bump up too. And that's where some of these San Jose guys will fill into this roster. One surprise on this roster, I think I mentioned to you guys in the chat, was Zane Zielinski. They spelt his name wrong on the Eugene roster, but it's not Zan, it's Zane. He was one of our draft picks last season who never played in a minor league game coming out of college last season. So I was very surprised to see him already get bumped up to high A. I have heard that they're high on him, but my thought process on that is just with the huge influx of all these young middle infielders that they have at the San Jose level, they looked at him as being a more advanced hitter that could be more likely to handle that level of competition. And he does have a very good glove, so I think they're going to let him spend some time up there first, and then if he struggles, they might give him a little bit of time down in San Jose shortly after.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was Charlie's former teammate, right?
Yeah.
University of Chicago.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Look at the show the infield a little bit. Yeah, so good watching Eugene. Definitely check it out, everyone. For those of you that like to watch the minors a little bit, we'll hop over to Richmond. And sorry, the one thing, you're not going to see Bryce on any of these lists. He is currently in Arizona rehabbing his wrist. He's been playing in games, so it sounds like he's closer to returning, but he wasn't listed on any rosters, so there's still no announcement on where he's going to go. Now Richmond, which it's not going to be the best pitching staff in the system or in their affiliates. That's definitely Sacramento right now, but this is where the pitching starts getting a lot more interesting to me. Especially kind of a combination of both starters and relievers. I see Mike, he's mentioned John Michael Bertrand in the chat. He actually was pretty solid last season. Dylan Cummings showed some good things. Jack Choate has shown some good things. I'm really excited to see Joe Whitman in Double-A. I was a little on the fence on that one. I thought he could start in Double-A, but he did have some inconsistency in Eugene last season and he didn't pitch a ton of the year in Eugene. So I thought there was a chance I kept him there. So he's really solid. I mean, Bednar still has like insane stuff as a potential reliever, but we'll see. You guys all know how high I am on Trent Harris, and a lot of these guys are. And then, the infield's pretty interesting. Sabine Ceballos, I said it on the show with Jeff, that I think that's the guy I'm kind of like most excited to see at his next level. See how he handles Double-A in the Eastern League. Averson Arteaga, they brought him up to Double-A, which made sense because he played a full year in High A before the injury, and then last season kind of got derailed from that. Diego, that's good to see. Outfield, Von Brown, he's hanging around. Jairo Pomares, that's that he's got some of the best power, especially left-handed power in the system. So, a lot to like here. And Adrian Sugastay, if he can just figure out how to hit a little bit, he could be a really nice backup catcher. He's got a cannon back there, really advanced defensively.
And I do think he has a nice ceiling as a hitter if he can just put it together. He does have some pop in his bat. I mean, we saw him smoke a ball for those of you that may have watched the Futures game. He showed a little bit of that bat speed, so he does have potential. I like him a lot. He's just battled a little bit. He was a bigger signing for them internationally a few years back, so hopefully he can pan it out a little bit in Richmond. He is a little bit young for that level, but I think he definitely still has some nice potential. But I see a lot of guys on this Richmond roster that hopefully by season's end we can see fill in Sacramento, because a lot of these guys have already spent time in Richmond. I mean, you look at Bednar, Bertrand, Choate was there a little bit. Trent Harris, you're looking at a lot of these pitchers. Sugastay's been there a little bit. Diego. Yeah,
Sugastay,
Barracoto.
They were there all year, in Jairo.
Yeah, and Jairo too, after he came back from injury. So you're looking at a lot of their top guys have already spent time in Richmond. So hopefully we'll see a lot of these guys fill into Sacramento and make Sacramento a little bit more interesting. Right now, it feels like we got a lot of 4A type guys that are kind of in no man's land there right now. So hopefully that'll make them on the position player side a little bit more interesting later on in the season. But the pitching staff in Richmond will definitely be a fun watch for sure.
Yeah. And for those of you that do like watching the minor league ball, Richmond is always an early game because they're on the East Coast. So it is nice all year. It's the one like solo game that typically will be taking place before the other ones. So you can get you can check those out. And then the other ones, you always end up having to like flip around between them. So that is a positive for Richmond. So it's going to be a nice watch, I think, this season. And then I didn't save the image for it, so I'm not going to bring it up. But Sacramento, like I said, they haven't mentioned Bryce. To Ricky's point down there. It's the pitching, great. Like you can just tune into Sacramento just to see the pitching almost nightly. Outfield, they've got some interesting stuff. Meckler obviously got injured last week. I don't know how serious it is. Good old minor leagues. It doesn't update anybody. But they've got McRae, Luciano out in the outfield. Bishop's got some potential. I don't think he's probably going to reach that in this organization, but they have some stuff there. But outside of that, I mean, it's pretty barren when it comes to offensive talent in Sacramento. So,
yeah, unless you want to watch starting pitching, I would definitely recommend giving Richmond a lot of watch early on in the season. And then here in about a month, I would say watch San Jose on a daily basis because there's going to be a ton of talent on the position player side. Outside of Maldonado, he's like their number one starting pitcher right now down in San Jose. He'll be a good watch. He's actually going to be starting their game tomorrow night. So if anybody likes watching the minors, I would definitely recommend watching him. High 90s fastball, good stuff. So
yeah, it's explosive.
They're going to be a fun watch this year.
Yeah.
And what's your guys' opinion? Because Ziggy asked, pulled it up. What do you guys really think of Arteaga? I'm not high on him. Great glove at short, like really good glove, like Drew Brandon Crawford comparisons in the system.
I was going to say, from what I know with Arteaga, just based on what you guys have told me and my limited research, you guys are a little bit more inclined with the system than I am. He's a defensive first player, and that's what you see is what you're going to get. It's high potential defensively, average to below average offensively. That's just my assessment.
Yeah. Good pop. Hit 17 home runs in high A a couple of years ago. But he kind of sold out for him, struck out a little more than he should, probably because of that. Let's just remember Brandon Crawford was not viewed as a good offensive prospect at all when he got called up, and he figured out how to hit at the major league level. I'm not going to sit here and be like, Everson Arteaga is going to be Brandon Crawford, because, I mean, for starters, they have Willie Adames locked up for super long. But, sometimes those guys, you bring them up for defense and they figure it out at the plate a little bit at least. So it's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, I like his arm. I like his range there. I just don't ever see him being a high average guy at all. Like you said, I feel like he did kind of sell out a little bit power wise, just because at least that way he can kind of have some eye popping numbers, because ultimately if he's not hitting for power, he's not going to get bumped up a level. He's just going to fizzle out in the upper minors. So yeah, I'm not huge on him. He's never really shown a great bat at any level. So I'm not the hugest on him. I'd honestly hope a little bit more, that we see Walker Martin and Ryan Reckley have bigger years this year. Those guys are going to have a lot more upside with the bat. They're just not going to be as good of gloves as Arteaga, obviously. But, ultimately, you're going to have a ton of guys you draft in the lower minors as shortstops early on, and they're all going to get moved positions for the most part.
Yeah.
So, I mean, out of shortstops, those are the two guys I'm looking at. I don't really see anybody else for the most part right now. I see a lot of guys that are future second basemen, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I stand with him.
Yeah. A lot of second and third basemen. Different.
Yeah.
Throughout the system. Mike, are you asking where do we think Logan Porter ends up playing, or do you think, or are you asking just in like what we think his ceiling is. Because I mean, he's probably going to just stay in Sacramento. I think him and Stassi are going to just split time down there. That would be my guess. Probably AAA. Because I think Sugastay is going to get the majority of the work in AA, and then they're trying to get O'Neal Perez to work through some demons behind the plate in High A. I should share the meme, but I'm trying not to pick on people right now. I don't need people telling me I'm being too mean.
It's all good.
It might come out if he has a week where he has like 3 pass balls. It might come out in a minor league update. I'm just gonna tell you guys now. So, but yeah, that'd be my guess. AAA. So.
Yeah, I think Porter's more just minor league depth than anything. I mean, if don't want to jinx it, but if somebody at the major league level gets hurt, then you're looking at Stassi coming up for sure. Yeah. He's a former teammate of Verlander. They seem to like him a lot just as a veteran presence. Somebody that they can trust defensively. Porter, I think, is just more of a 4A guy. I don't see us seeing much out of him. Yeah, that's all I really see with him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. Of the 3 Carsons in the minor leagues, we're going to do this one last, and then we'll get running on this. But of the 3 Carsons in the minor leagues, who gets called up first? Keep in mind, Seymour and Ragsdale are on the 40. Wisenhunt is not.
Yeah, so it'd be one of the 2. I'd probably say Seymour.
I mean, he's the one that's most polished for sure. I think this year is too important to Wisenhunt's development to see him get called up in any capacity unless he completely lights it up and Roop and Birdsong and Harrison all just start really struggling. But I honestly, I don't think we see any of the 3 Carsons this year unless it's at the very tail end of the season, personally.
Like a September call-up, maybe.
I was going to say my prediction is actually going to be Wisenhunt in September as a reliever. Because that as a 28th man with that changeup, and they're like, yeah, in September, be like, hey, you know what? This is a late inning guy. He's got like a Bugs Bunny changeup that dudes just cannot pick up. Throw that guy in the pen.
Yeah.
So for a month. So
I'd like to see him.
Yeah. My thing with Seymour, like he's the most polished of the 3, but he's also like been super inconsistent. I mean, this is a guy that had a 1.57 whip in Sacramento last season and was walking 4 per 9. I mean, you look throughout his career, he's had some high walk rates at various levels. He's looked phenomenal so far, but he's been inconsistent. So like, I need to see it over a longer stretch, but he could certainly, like, some of these guys could certainly play their way into being like spot start options. Because, you know, depending on when a guy gets hurt, there's no guarantee they can just go to Birdsong or Harrison. Like if both guys have been spent, like Harrison started in Sacramento and then, you know, Birdsong just threw 3 innings the day before. If all of a sudden a guy's got a massive blister or something and he can't go or whatever the case, gets the flu and they're going to 10-day IL, you might see Seymour get called up at that point if it's just like, this is the fresh arm, we got to throw someone.
Yeah.
So, but I do think there's some guys ahead of him, especially Harrison, especially Birdsong, especially I think Mason Black is still ahead of him, honestly. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, personally, I feel like not Wisenhunt, but Ragsdale and Seymour more than anything are guys I've mentioned for a while that are potential trade bait. Not as a headliner, but more guys that you could package in because they're pretty close to major league ready, you know, more so Seymour than Ragsdale. And I just see the Giants having a lot of these like almost 4A-ish starting pitcher types that are holding up 40-man roster spots. And there's guys like Wisenhunt that you are going to need to add to that 40-man. So I just don't see some of these guys hanging around long term. And Ragsdale's getting on the older end, and
27.
I just don't feel like he's really shown enough. I mean, you look at his numbers last year, and I mean they weren't overly impressive. He did solid in Richmond in a pitcher's environment, and then he went to Sacramento and his numbers ballooned. So
yeah,
I feel like he's a guy they've kind of hung on to because he was a higher end draft pick for the Phillies, and he has that upside. It's just you're getting to the point where it's like, man, you're almost 30 years old, my guy. Like, we got to figure out what you are. And I don't see him making the big league team at any point personally.
I saw Ragsdale pitch. I saw Wisenhunt and Ragsdale pitch last season, and Black in it was up in Tacoma. But I saw all three of those guys pitch, and Wisenhunt unfortunately was coming off of like an injury stint, so he only went like 3 innings. Saw a lot of front foot swings with him because of that changeup. But Ragsdale, my takeaway was it looked like he was like literally throwing body parts at a person when he was pitching. Like, I would not want to be in a batter's box with that guy throwing, because he's 6'8", and unlike Jelly, who's 6'11", but he's like pretty compact with his motion. Ragsdale is not at all. Like, he just has like arms and legs going everywhere, and it's just like, what the hell? This is not uncomfortable at that. So
with him, I've always felt Ragsdale had more of a future as a reliever with his stuff. He has really good strikeout stuff. So like I say, the upside, he has higher upside in my opinion than Seymour does. But the walks are also a huge issue with Ragsdale, and I've always felt like in order to get him going through the minors quicker, they should have done that like 2 seasons ago when they acquired him.
Yeah.
I think they got him for Sam Coonrod, if I'm not mistaken, like a few years back, earlier on in the Farhan tenure.
He got some interesting players that have been in the system. Guys like Eric Miller, Ragsdale, a few of these guys. I mean, Seymour, he got him in the Darren Ruff trade. Like, he's got some promise. I mean, Farhan did swoop a few guys that are kind of interesting guys. So, yeah. This will be the last one. I know my prediction was Harris sees the majors this season at some point. I love his stuff. His stuff is nasty. He competes. He's really polished, not a bunch of like walk issues or anything like that. I like Trent Harris. He's like one of my favorite pitching prospects they have between, if you mix starters and relievers.
Yeah, you're super high on him, rightfully so though.
Yeah. So other than that, I think that's all we really have for today. Great road trip. Giants back home. They start tomorrow. It's gonna be Verlander, I think, tomorrow. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna see Verlander tomorrow.
A second Luis Castillo in the Mariners rotation. Did you? One of the guys in the comments actually mentioned that it's Luis F. Castillo, and he's got almost no major league experience. I think he made one
hit.
I hope not. I think he has one appearance this year, and besides that, the last appearance he made in the big leagues was in 2022. And he doesn't have a ton of strikeout stuff. So if we see them striking out 15 times tomorrow, we got problems, because this is a guy that's should only be giving them 4 to 5 innings with maybe 3 to 4 strikeouts.
And Seattle has 18 runs in 7 games. So that could be good or it could be real bad. That means either they're about to score like 20 runs in this series, or pitching could have its way a little bit. So fingers crossed it's the latter.
All I know is Seattle's front office, they miss Farhan.
Yeah, right. But next week, everybody, I am not going to be around. These two guys, we were going to not have a minor league update. Sounds like they're going to actually come in clutch for you guys, and they're going to run one. So we will hopefully get the update out. Tuesday is usually what we're aiming for. So that'll be awesome. Those guys will do that. Are you guys planning on doing a live show at the end of the week next week?
We could.
It's your guys'
More than
call.
likely.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually down visiting in California, so I will be down there, but I will not have a setup to record, so I won't be able to hop in. But we are going to try and get some videos we'll be at the game next Wednesday. We'll hopefully be able to post some shorts or some stuff from that. Hopefully we get some good stuff, but other than that, I got nothing.
Tomorrow's going to be a good day.
Yep.
Opening
We got
day.
Giants home opener, and San Jose, Eugene, and Richmond all begin their seasons tomorrow. So
Good day overall.
Baseball
We'll get,
all day, every day.
Love it.
yes, sir. Get three days worth of minor league games to give you guys a little update other than just Sacramento games. So that'll be nice.
Yeah. So it'll be nice. All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. Like I said earlier, if you enjoy the content, hit that like, hit the subscribe. We really appreciate it. We will do a giveaway at 1750 subscribers, and then another at 2000. Which I don't know. Maybe we'll bump the hoodie. We might bump one of these up to the 1750. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, hit that. And other than that, we'll catch you guys next time.